All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Global Reality. This is the Wednesday, September 20th, 2017 edition of the broadcast. Thank you very much for joining me here for another edition of the show. Good to be back with you. I've been, as you know, working to complete Spellcasters Volume 2. Still grinding away. Still got a lot of work left to do, man. It just contending and dealing with a lot. It's, these films, it's never easy to do, and it's always, God damn it, more work than I ever fucking counted on. But, there's nothing you can do but just to keep pushing forward and keep trudging along and, just do as much as you can and then, do it again until it's done. There's really nothing else to do other than to just keep going. I want it to be done as much as you, but also it's got to be right, and it's got to be, I will never rush stuff out the door ever again, because I did that, and it was a bad idea. It wasn't my idea. It was somebody else's idea anyway. That's neither here nor there. But anyway, I had people who were trying to rushing me and hurry, get it done, and of course it ended up not being a good thing. Specifically, the film that I'm talking about was Secret Right Volume 2. That was the one that. So when it came to Lost Secrets Volume 1, that's when I was really okay. I'm taking my time. I don't care, and that's my attitude since then. And that's the way I'm going to continue to do it here. So I'm just at that point where I'm not going to give estimates anymore because I just don't know. But we're closing in, But aside from that, we're also closing in on our official 10-year anniversary of the broadcast, which is September 26th. That's also when our 10-year anniversary fundraiser ends, and that's really our goal right now, is to reach that 100% on that. We've got, that's why I haven't done as many shows, besides the fact that I've been working on the film. Also, I've just had technical problems and shit, man. I've got to have a new computer in here, a new Mac in here ASAP. The one we're running on now is 6-7 years old, and it's just the video editing stuff. It's just not been able to. Everything's slowing down. It's taken. Well, I probably would already have this movie done and out if I had a new computer already. But and that's the thing. I've been here for 10 years. We've been running on a lot of the same equipment for a very, very long time now, and we want to not only be able to continue doing what we've been doing here with the information and the movies and YouTube videos and everything else and the radio shows, but to expand on that. I mean, who wants to sit in the same fucking place forever? I don't. I'm sick of that. I tolerated it for a while, but you've got to be able to have the equipment to be able to do this stuff. And we've got old cameras, we've got old computers, we've got old microphones. Just everything's old, and everything has been fixed and repaired and upgraded, and to its maximum potential. We're past the point of being able to fix, and we've done all that. Everything here has been duct taped and fucking resoldered, and hard drives replaced. But after a while, man, stuff just gets antiquated, and you've got to have upgrades for that. So I want to encourage everybody to go and contribute now. Please go and read all the information on the 10-year anniversary fundraiser page, because there's lots of info within that fundraising page. You can find it on our social media page at Facebook, at the Global Reality Radio Network Facebook page, and the Josh Reeves Radio Talk Show Host Explorer Facebook page as well. If you can't find that, you can find it in the links and the information on the YouTube videos. If you still can't find it, email me and I'll send you the link. But those ways you should be able to find that there. So counting down, I think we're about 6 days now, I guess, away from the official 10-year anniversary of the broadcast. I've got some stuff planned, some special surprises coming between now and then. But we're going to be. I'll be doing. Well, I don't want to give too much away. I got some stuff that'll be we're going to be doing around the anniversary of that. So, but I plan on doing a lot of broadcasts and that, and doing sort of a 24-hour pledge drive leading up to the 10-year anniversary to raise the funds that we need. Probably going to end up just combining. We'll see what happens. I haven't decided yet. I'll probably end up just combining the total that we need for the operating costs of the month to the 10-year anniversary fundraiser, and just have that be one amount. You know what I mean? Instead of trying to raise two amounts for the month. I haven't done that yet. As it stands now, there's two separate fundraisers. It really doesn't matter which one you contribute to, so long as we reach the goal we need to reach. But that's probably what we'll end up doing. Is we'll end up just adding the total amount to the 10-year anniversary fundraiser, and just have that be the goal, instead of trying to have two separate drives for this that happen within a week apart or something. But anyway, I want to get on here and give you the updates of that and let everybody know to there's all kinds of perks and different packages you can get for different contribution amounts, and all kinds of special stuff lined up for that. So, but as I said, if you don't want to contribute through the fundraising page, if you don't want to contribute through PayPal, you can always contribute through the donate button in my website at theglobalreality.com. You scroll down to the right-hand side of the page. You can put in, you don't have to use a PayPal account. You can put in any credit card, debit card, or prepaid card. If you want to get a prepaid Visa gift card, you can do that and send me the numbers. And also on the campaign page for the 10-year anniversary fundraiser, we've got everything we need is itemized there on that with the amounts next to it. And also where you can go and purchase gift cards that they're online gift cards that you just send me the information for, that I can then use towards that. So if you want to, if you want to, if you need the peace of mind, not that it wouldn't go anywhere else, but I mean, if you're one of those people who just needs the peace of mind, or something that your contribution is going towards that, that's one way to do it. You can go on there and look at what we need. I think it's Amazon, Reverb.com, and Apple.com are the three. And they have, pretty much unlimited, I think, amounts. Some of them may have limits, but you can buy multiples if you want to go to a certain amount. But yeah, if you wanted to be the person, if there's some amazing, and I know they're out there because you've contributed before. I'm not just throwing darts at a board here. We have literal angels among us within our listening audience. They don't pop up all the time, but they pop up enough, just enough to let you know they're there and make a huge, huge difference when they do. So those of you out there, you know who you are, or maybe you know who you are even though you've never done it or been one before. But there are literal angels out in our audience who have who from time to time make themselves known and apparent by contributing in a big way, and really 100% contributing to me even still being here today. Everybody that contributes is 100%. Excuse me, no matter what amount that you contribute. But there are those special ones out there that have contributed large amounts and made big purchases for us before. And, all of you, no matter who you are, you're solely responsible. And I am as well. I mean, I could have given up on this a long time ago and went and done something else, but you can't give up on something that, I mean, this is beyond believing in something. You know what I mean? This is beyond just, and this is not the normal thing where, at the end of all this, then we'll have some big result. That's what people can't wrap their minds around doing this, because most people can't wrap their minds around doing something that's not for their own personal benefit. No, there's not any big end goal for me for all this. I'm not hoping that I'll become rich and famous and become some famous celebrity as a result of doing this. If I was hoping for that, I've picked the wrong goddamn thing to do, I'll tell you. There's nothing like that for me. The point is that It's work that needs to be done. And regardless of what the outcome is, good or bad, you have to separate yourself from that attachment to an outcome. And man, I tell you what, I'm not just preaching from, hot air out of my ass. I'm telling you from honest to fuck experience that, everything changes once you do something like that and have something like that in your life, And I think it's why, I mean, again, you could argue maybe that I haven't been, of course, I haven't been as successful with all this as I should be, of course, but there's a lot of factors in that, It sure has not been from a lack of trying. It has not been from a lack of hard work. It hasn't been from a lack of, people believing in what I do. It has, none of it is any of those normal root causes. You have to understand this is you can't judge this kind of work and talking about this kind of stuff against the same normal, sort of benchmarks that you measure life success against. It's just not the same model, But yeah, I think that it's it's one. I know for a fact that we have people out there, and that's what we need right now. If you're one of those angels out there in our audience, you could always go to the campaign page for the 10-year anniversary fundraiser, and if you want to gift us with a new computer, you can go right on there and buy the gift cards and all that, and send me the numbers, and I can boom get it handled, get it taken care of. Same thing with other upgrades. We need studio upgrades for microphones, stuff for music creation stuff, for the soundtracks and everything. I want to make a 4K camera as well. I think the Amazon stuff is for that. But what I'm saying is there are lots of options on there, and there's plenty of ways you can contribute. So if you want to contribute and you're confused about how to do it, or don't know what method you should use or whatever else, always email me, globalrealityshow@gmail.com. That's globalrealityshow@gmail.com, and I will help you out as much as I can to help you get your contribution made. But I've got a lot of stuff that I want to do, and I really am looking forward to being able to get new gear so that, because I remember when it happened before, when we went from like the early days of doing the show to like around, 2007 to 2011, and then like, getting this first Mac. It's still the first one I've ever had, but just almost the instantaneous quantum leap that happened as far as quality of my films and whatnot after that. I'm really looking forward to seeing that happen again now. So I've got so much material and so much stuff I want to crank out, but again, we've had so many tech issues. It's if it's not the financial stuff, it's that. But you know what? Again, I wouldn't still be here doing this if I didn't. I mean, like I said, it's beyond just believing in something. It's almost like not having a choice. If we didn't have people out there who were lying about the truth and posing, these insiders, government agents, CIA, whatever it may be, if there weren't so many people out there that are working directly for the power structure and claiming themselves to be truthers and researchers and all, if that whole element wasn't there, I probably would have gone and done something else a long time ago. The problem is that there are so very few, if any, reputable and trustworthy sources out there anymore that it really, we got to have more people like me and others, who are willing to put it on the line and not buy into the bullshit. Because there's so many people out. There's people who just there are, who do radio shows and talk about these subjects and everything else, but they're only doing it. They know full well what they're hawking is bullshit, and they do it anyway because they're doing it to try and gain some kind of a career off of it. And the only way you gain a career off of this stuff is by being a fucking tool for the establishment. There's no way about it. There's no two ways about it. That's a fact of the matter. I mean, I'm one of the true last remaining real truth tellers out there. And somebody who has leaps and bounds of years worth of research. I mean, I was researching this stuff back when nobody wanted to talk about it. Now everybody, it's funny, man. Now everybody acts like they have, it seems, I see celebrities and stuff do it now too. Everybody acts like they've got a little bit of knowledge about this stuff now. Like they've been into it for years. Bullshit, man. These motherfuckers are full of shit. People like, all these celebrities and stuff now. Bill Burr and, what's his name? Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols and Glenn Danzig and all these people. I mean, it's cool that they're all into this stuff, Billy Corgan, but, come on, guys. It's kind of the same thing with, I'm a big Rush fan. I've been a lifelong Rush fan. And you couldn't even bring up or even say in public for a long time. I mean, you couldn't even bring it up. To say to somebody that you were a Rush fan was like you saying to somebody that you were a fan of Hitler. I mean, really, or a fan of Charles Manson. And then it's become cool, and then all these people who, Billy Corgan again and others, oh, yeah, I've been a Rush fan my whole life. Yeah, right. Right, but when you were selling records, you sure weren't bringing up Rush. Same thing. Now it's everybody is trying to act like, I remember you motherfuckers. I can remember when there was, nobody knew about this shit, man. And just like, with the whole Rush thing, same thing. I can remember the late 90s. I've talked about this a million times, but I will never let this memory fade because it's such a reflective thing to look back on how things are now as opposed to what they were then, 18, 19 years ago. Talk about the Bilderberg Group was certifiable insane. You were fit for the loony bin to even broach the subject. Literally. And now it's just commonplace stuff. So there, I've been looking at this stuff for a long time. And here's the big question everybody has. Somebody wrote me an email and said, oh, are you going to talk about the September 23rd thing, the Bureau thing? I'm pretty sure I've talked about it a billion fucking times. And no, I'm sorry. I'm not going to go back and rehash shit just because somebody else asked me about the Mandela effect. I talked about that. They were like, research. I'm like, well, I have researched it. Just because you haven't heard me talk about something doesn't mean I have not fucking researched it. Jesus Christ. Go back and listen to the shows from October 2016. I don't know exactly which one. Take a little time and effort on your own. Go listen back to the shows. There aren't that many. It won't take you long to find it. From October 2016, somewhere in there's a show where I talked about the Mandela effect thing. I'm not going to rehash it and go over it again, though. Not when I can, with that much accuracy, point you in the direction of a time when I for sure already talked about it and discussed it and gave everything I need to say about it in that episode. So, I've been one of the few people, as far as the September 23rd thing, look, how many times have we fucking heard this shit? No, I'm not on board with this. No, look, you want a prediction? You want my prediction. You want to know what I think is going to happen on September 23rd? You want my prediction for September 23rd? Here it is. I'll give it to you right here. You ready? I predict that on September 24th, the day after it's supposed to happen and Nibiru is supposed to come and all this, I predict that on that day, I will be up here and I'll get up here and I'll do a radio show and I will be laughing and talking about how this fucking ass clown and others like him need to be ran out of fucking town on a rail for making all these bullshit fear-based, with nothing, no evidence to back them up whatsoever. And it happens again and again. And, of course, what's interesting is that, and I can't really, it's kind of hard to pinpoint. But, the guy who's been, I've never heard of this guy prior to this, but supposedly the guy that's been spreading this name is David Mead, self-described specialist in research and investigations, has earned a fair amount of publicity online for predicting that catastrophic events would soon befall Earth. Among his claims on Saturday, September 23rd, 2017, a constellation, a sign prophesied in the book of Revelations, would reveal itself in the skies over Jerusalem, signaling the beginning of the end of the world as we know it. Mead believes that by the end of October, the world may enter what is called a 7-year tribulation period, a fairly widespread evangelical belief that for 7 years, catastrophic events would happen. And this is where I had heard him talk about it. I didn't realize that the guy who was spreading this October 23rd thing, I thought there was other people doing it. I mean, I knew he was saying, the end of the world was going to start or happen, and then, because on one end, I swore I heard that he say it's going to end that day, but then here they're saying, no, he thinks that's when it's going to start, and it'll extend to October. Like, oh yeah, give me a break. See, this is how these guys always getting out. They do the same shit with all that 2012 into the world horse shit, which I never fucking got behind. You can go and listen to any of the shows that I did prior to you go listen to any shows that I'm like the only person. I swear there were a lot of people. Even Jones will probably deny it now. Even Alex Jones, for a period of time, was pushing the end of the world 2012. So of course he was. Why? Because it's bullshit, and that's the only stuff he pushes is bullshit. But that's how they always do it. They give a specific date. They never believe it's going to happen on that date, and then it doesn't happen. They say, well, this is by the end of October, we may enter what's called May. See, may enter what's called a 7-year tribulation period. So all the hype is put around the 23rd thing, but yet even the guy himself making the claim is saying, well, yeah, this is just the beginning of it. And then this is what I didn't realize. I didn't realize he's also tying this in with the Nibiru thing. Here we go. You smell that? Did I step on something? Somebody shit themselves in here? Anybody else smell steaming hot fucking pile? Yeah, listen, if you don't know about me exposing the Nibiru thing, do yourself a favor, go get yourself. It's only going to be on sale for another week. Go to my download shop right now. You can find the link. It's in the middle of the page at my website, theglobalreality.com. Go in there and get yourself our 10-year anniversary audiobook collection. It is well worth the money. Excuse me. And that's not me saying that. That's from about 10 people who've gotten copies already. It's only $20. It's something like, I don't remember what I said. It's like 91 hours, 93 hours, something. It's just ridiculous. It's the first time any of these have been condensed down into single files, not a bunch of broken up individual MP3s that you have to, go and dig back through and find and start again. They're all neatly arranged into single files. Go in there and listen to all they're all in there. Listen to the Zachariah Sitchin book readings. That's what people have never understood and never really got about when I initially did those readings of the Zachariah Sitchin book and why I was doing that. I wasn't doing it because I agreed with it. I was doing it. I was reading those and chose to read those books because I felt like a hypocrite. Because I had kind of, before that, I had research. I'd always intentionally never read Sitchin stuff. Intentionally. And of course, I had for many years on my own, separate from his, and this is what sucks about doing that. Because those have gotten, one of the biggest things I've ever done, out of all my movies, anything else, and the biggest thing has been the reading of the Lost Book of Enki. And as big as it was, I regret doing it. Because it made everybody think, number one, because people cut it from my radio show, it made people think that I was just a regular old YouTuber back then when I wasn't. And it also made people falsely believe that I was reading that, because people don't listen. They don't care if you said something a million times, and they don't even care if there's a separate YouTube video where you explain it. They don't care. They don't listen. They just want to make blind assumptions and run with it like it's the truth. And I tell you what, boy, I experienced that both in terms of my professional work and in terms of my personal life. You wouldn't believe how many people in my personal life do that to me and have done it to me constantly. They just run on assumptions. They take it and they run with it like it's the truth. And then I get pissed off about it, and they, wonder why I'm pissed off. Well, you made assumptions that you just can't make. I know it's hard. It's easy to make assumptions about people sometimes, but that's the problem. You've got all these assumptions being made, and none of it has anything to do with the truth. So people falsely assumed that I was all into the Lost Book of, I was all into Zachariah Sitchin, and reading his stuff was an endorsement. It wasn't. Again, it was because I felt like a hypocrite, because I'd done all this I had researched the Sumerian stuff. I researched the Anunnaki. I researched a lot of this, the bloodlines, all this stuff for years, independently of ever even paying any attention to any Zachariah Sitchin stuff. So when I started talking about the Zachariah Sitchin stuff, or not, when I started talking about the Sumerian stuff, the priest class, the Brotherhood of the Snake, all that stuff, possible genetic manipulation of humans, inevitably somebody would always bring up Zachariah Sitchin. I'd always have to do the same explanation thing, because it's another one of those topics, like I've talked about many times, where they take a particular topic, in this case the Sumerians, Anunnaki stuff, and then they have a planted, controlled figurehead that they associate with that topic, and that person becomes the all absolute gatekeeper by design of that particular topic. And so when anybody else, any other independent researchers at any point come with contradictory information, a lot of people will just say, well, that he must be wrong. Can't be right about that. He's got to be absolutely wrong, because if he was right about it, or in any way, shape, or form, Zachariah Sitchin would have said something about it. So yeah, I mean, if you want to know how I feel about the Nibiru thing, and I still stand by the Nibiru thing. I did my research on that many, many years ago. It's just the one thing that I don't find in the actual scholarly translations, and it's something that he absolutely tacked on to his own. And of course, if you see my film, The Spellcasters 1 and 1.5, we got some stuff in there on that as well, because here's what I didn't know. I didn't realize that a lot of the Xenu type stuff in Scientology, in sort of the upper, because a lot of those upper OT levels, a lot of that stuff came much later. It's what people don't realize. You don't really realize this. People think that Scientology was kind of delivered very much in its current state as it exists now, 100%, with the writing and creation of Dianetics by Ron Hubbard, and that's just not the case. There was stuff being added onto it, and stuff added onto it even after his death. And then you've got the what we've talked about, and what we talk about in 1.5 spellcasters, the squirrel groups and the offshoot groups that, in some cases, have created their own OT levels even beyond what Elron created. But the fascinating thing that I didn't realize is that, because everybody talks about, L. Ron Hubbard's being a sci-fi writer prior to doing Scientology and all this stuff, and much is made about the fact that here's a sci-fi writer creating a religion and all that. But I think that's honestly, that attitude is really short-sighted, and I think it's intentionally parroted and repeated and put out there because it fits and it helps shut off people from looking any further or deeper into the subject. Scientology, crazy, whatever. guy was a sci-fi writer. What do you expect? But he was also respected, and he was friends with the other respected sci-fi writers. But what a lot of people don't know is that he didn't write any books for decades. He, after doing Dianetics and all that in Scientology, he had given up. He had by that time already given up writing sci-fi stuff. But people who don't know the history of all this stuff, who don't take the time to go and research it for themselves, don't understand. And I can speak from experience because I was one of these people at one time too. Again, I like to talk the talk and walk the walk when and if I can. And this is another one of those cases, just like the Sitchin thing. I didn't just want to be a random shit talker. I wanted to read his books and read them on air and tell you what's good and what's not. And that's what I did. And that was the whole reasoning behind reading those books. And the same thing with a lot of people I know don't realize this. And again, I see documentaries and I hear this repeated often. L. Ron Hubbard did not write the infamous Battlefield Earth, which is really just a mirror representation of the Anunnaki story. I mean, watch Battlefield Earth, dude. Watch the movie. I mean, if you don't want to read the book, at least just watch that goddamn godforsaken movie, and realize that it's like the reverse. It's the same, it's the story of the Anunnaki and the mining gold and the Galactic Mining Corporation. All that shit. It's exactly what it is. But what a lot of people don't realize, and again, I didn't realize this for a time either, because it's pretty well known that the bulk of his science fiction writing, or pretty much what everybody thinks is that all of his science fiction writing happened prior to the advent of Scientology, and he didn't write anymore after that. But the fact of the matter is, Battlefield Earth did not get written, ladies and gentlemen, in that same time period when he was actually considered a science fiction writer and writing science fiction books. He didn't write Battlefield Earth until the 1980s. And prior to the writing of Battlefield Earth, and prior to the work of Zecharia Sitchin, the Xenu stuff and all that, that stuff from Battlefield Earth and all that, that did not exist. That was not around. This is one of the stuff about, Zecharia Sitchin being CIA comes into play with the whole connections with Scientology and the CIA, as I discussed in the Spellcasters. That's where all this comes into play. Because that's when you start to understand that L. Ron Hubbard started to realize, wait a second here. Now I've got something, a narrative to play off of, and I've got something to incorporate into Scientology, which then gives it more credibility because I'm making it sound as if it's awful similar to the Zecharia Sitchin and the Anunnaki and the rest of that stuff. But again, it's important to note that none of that stuff prior to any of the Zecharia Sitchin writings, all of that stuff did not exist in the original Scientology stuff and came after the work of Zecharia Sitchin. So if you've seen Spellcasters Volume 1 and 1.5, you get and understand why that's significant and why that's important, because again, it shows these connections to the Central Intelligence Agency, to the intelligence agencies at large, to black operations, and their connections to so-called truth tellers. And so the fact that this guy is combining the Planet X Nibiru thing now with this September 23rd and the rapture, the end time stuff, again, I will tell you the only thing about this that has any credibility. NASA says it's bullshit with the whole Nibiru thing. That's, I mean, that's it. That's all y'all got. That's the only bit shred of credibility any of that stuff has. Personally, I mean, again, from my research and from looking at the actual scholarly translations of Sumerian texts and whatnot, that whole Nibiru thing was a creation. But as I've talked about many times, at the same time, and again, people have to be able to start wrapping their minds around the things that multiple things, something can be not true, and then something can be also kind of true simultaneously. You understand? That's something that a lot of people have a difficult time wrapping their minds around. Absolutely, there are cyclical events that happen that pertain to space objects, either asteroids or meteors or whatever else, or sun cycles. And the knowledge of these cyclical events that have happened for many, 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 many eons. This knowledge is one of the greatest secrets that is being held from mankind as a whole. And a lot of the ancients attempted to alert us to these things and encoded much of this information in ancient earthworks across the world. Many of the ancient earthworks, mounds, and all these various things are all, well, that's why they have these certain alignments, and that's why they are aligned to certain star systems and take place on certain, equinox, and why they relate to specifically to solar events, in some cases lunar events as well. If you got like a place like Chaco Canyon where you've got lunar and solar, usually it's one or the other. But again, the only thing that gives us any shred of credibility at all is that NASA says it's bullshit. But again, I think there are other things, and I think Nibiru has been, because I mean, again, in every article you read, just like this one, they call Nibiru and Planet X the same thing. And it's not, those two things are not the same thing. Nemesis is not the same thing. These are all separate things that have all been related as being the same, because that's what people do. They just pick and choose whenever they want to scare you with the next calamity and horseshit. Now, here's what is interesting, though. Here's what is interesting. So what have we heard about stuff like Nibiru? Well, we've heard that, of course, that, and again, none of this is backed up by any sort of, here's what's fascinating. I think that it's possible that they could sort of piggyback this whole Nibiru thing, and I think it's possible. Again, this is I need to be clear with what I'm about to say. What I'm about to say right now is merely absolute speculation. It is not based on any hard data at all. Okay, I'm just giving you my opinion, my analysis of this. I don't want people to think, I just, how it is now with the fucking internet and shit. You don't even have to say something, and somebody will say you said it. They'll just take anything you said. So I don't want people to say that I think the staged alien invasion is going to happen this weekend. I'm not saying that. Or is going to happen on the 23rd or something. But what I'm saying is I think that this is a perfect opportunity. Because again, people why have they given this guy David Meade? Why have they given him so much press? Why has there been so many articles written about this guy? Right? Because I mean, people make whack nut fucking predictions and have been for years and years and years, right? Why are they giving this guy so much press? You know as well as I do, you don't get Washington Post articles written about you, for just being some fucking religious crank making a prediction about the end of the world. There's been a million of those. They don't all get front page Washington Post. Why are they pushing this? You see what I mean? There's got to be a reason why they're giving this. I mean, beyond just the obvious, they want the clicks, whatever. They want the hits. They want the fucking advertise, whatever. Beyond just that, they're giving this an awful lot of press. And I think there's a perfect opportunity here for them to sort of piggyback this whole thing as a way to push their staged alien invasion scenario. Now, I'm not saying, again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not saying that's an inevitability. I'm not saying 100% that's what this is. I'm just saying that, in my opinion, this is a perfect opportunity for that, and I'll tell you why. The reason is that there's already been getting press. They've been every time you hear about the September 23rd thing, I mean, I can't even tell you, I probably got 6 articles up right now just in my browser that all are talking about this, and they always relate it with Nibiru. But the thing that's been pushed with this Nibiru thing is this idea, just like it is with Nemesis and what was the other one? Vulcan, these supposed exoplanets. The one thing that they always talk about is these cataclysms. And I mean, I can't even cover all the ones that are going on right now. So I can't deny that. Again, if NASA says something's bullshit, that's the first thing that makes me go, well, really? I mean, as much evidence as I have, as strongly as I believe the whole Nibiru thing is bullshit. I mean, listen, NASA's kind of, well, they are. It's kind of a untrue statement. They basically are the government, but just like the government, anything the government tells you, you just take the opposite of that, and that's the truth. Like if the government gets on TV and tells you not to panic, everything's cool, go back in there, chill them niggas out, wait for the wolf who should be coming directly. If they come and tell you, hey, we got this, panic. Pack your shit. That's when you pack your shit and start freaking out. Conversely, when they come at you with panic, freak out, panic, every time it turns out to be the fucking Chicken Little thing, right? So same thing with NASA. Now, granted, there have been some cases where NASA has been right about something, but I mean, we're talking very common sense things. They're okay. This is true. Or what? Yeah, okay. Well, we agree with that. Like the sky is blue. If NASA says the fucking, I think NASA agrees the sky is blue, right? So that's cool. I mean, that's probably about the only thing they're probably right about. But generally, as a rule, whatever NASA tells you, if NASA says, oh, there's absolute, because how many times for years were they saying there's absolutely no such thing as UFOs, there's absolutely no such thing as extraterrestrials, yet they spend billions of dollars, on these telescopes that look for alien life and everything else, right? But they've been telling you for years, you're a kook and a wacky. So anything NASA tells you is bullshit, and they've been really hard on this. Again, how long have people been predicting the end of the world? Eons. How long have people been talking about this whole Nibiru and the end of the world and Planet X? They've been fucking pushing it since, for decades now. It's the 90s I've been hearing about it being pushed. It probably was being pushed before that. But it doesn't change the fact that, again, the fact that NASA so vehemently denies it, that's number one for me. That's a big red flag. And look at these fucking catastrophes that's been going on, right? I mean, this is an easy connector, right? This is, again, but it's too easy of a connector, isn't it? You see what I mean? This is where it's getting people. That's the point right there, where the rest of everybody else who is into conspiracy talk shows or whatever else, that's the point right there where everybody else is getting got. So you're here listening to me and listening to this show. So right there is where that line is drawn, and you don't have to be worried about being sucked into that, because again, it's a good connector, isn't it? Makes total fucking sense, right? What have we heard about Nibiru? We've heard it would cause cataclysms on Earth, and look what we're having. 23rd's coming up, right? That's when it's supposed to be coming by, and look what we have all of a sudden just coming on the heels of this. I can't even count them all. We had a 6.1 magnitude earthquake in Japan struck. I think this just happened just a few hours ago. 170 miles from Fukushima. Of course, you already know about what's happening in Mexico. Bali, Holiday Island is rocked by the threat of volcanic eruption and a tsunami following massive earthquake as thousands of Aussie families fly in for school holidays. 5.7 earthquake off the coast of Bali. California. had what how all these hurricanes. For people who are trying to sell this Nibiru thing or the end of the world cataclysm thing happening, these are easy connectors, aren't they? This is common. This is easy for people to just connect and say, well, that must be it. Maybe there is something to this. You know, look at all these. Look just this week, how many cataclysms and they're happening all around the world. Just right. So again, I'm talking from that perspective of understand what I'm saying right now. I'm talking from that perspective of the people that are trying to sell you on this. So this is one of those things where you know, again, you're going to get a lot of people to believe in this. A lot of people thinking this is really happening because there's a lot of evidence, right? Well, I'm not one of those people. I can freely admit and openly discuss and talk about with you right here on the show the fact that, yeah, I can't deny that. NASA says it's bullshit, and we've got all these cataclysms going on that match identically with what we've heard about happening. Yeah, I'll admit to you, man, that's fucking pretty crazy. But, and this is, you know, again, this is going to be the problem. I feel like this is kind of, if this isn't the actual, and again, I'm not predicting saying this is the actual staged alien invasion scenario. I'm just saying it's one of many possibilities, and it could be. And if they were going to do this, this would be the perfect time to piggyback these other events to launch that, excuse me, the next phase of that operation, the staged alien invasion scenario. So, again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. But what I'm saying is that you've got all of this going on. We've got volcanoes that are being set off from these earthquakes, from these things, and that lines up with what people have talked about with this stuff. They've just been pushing this Nibiru thing for the past year. I told you, go back and listen to the shows in January. I think even the first show I did maybe of the year, the very first January show, whatever that was, it may have even been the last show of 2016. I don't remember. But somewhere, you can go in back in the archives and listen to this. Somewhere in that neighborhood of the end of last year, the beginning, I made a prediction that 2017 was going to be the year of Nibiru. Because we've had, I mean, even the first year, into the year last year, we've just been jacked. Every week it's been jacked with stories about Planet X and Nibiru, the rest of it. And again, anytime I see them pushing these narratives, that's what makes me alert. Now, here's what I think's going on. I think they've been aware of this, and I think they have been pushing this to hide the fact that they've been causing all of this stuff, all of these cataclysms to go on by the use of weather warfare weapons. What's the name of this movie that's coming out? Geostorm. You guys seen the fucking previews? It comes out next month. If you haven't seen the preview to Geostorm yet, realize this movie's was already made, and the trailers were already out prior to all this stuff happening. Okay, and it comes out next month. And it's all about, countries figuring out how to technologically control the weather. And then somebody, of course, they try to act like we don't already know, can't already assume who it's going to be in the movie. And then somebody, who's some mysterious person, you're right, mysterious person, some mysterious enemy hijacks these weather modification technologies and starts using them as a weapon against humans on Earth. Like we're too stupid to think, like we're just going to think it's some Bond villain or something. No, of course it's going to be the government's doing it. And again, this is fictionalizing the truth, so the truth seems like fiction. Because no way this would be happening right as a movie's coming out about it. I mean, they wouldn't be that blatant and obvious about it, would they? Yes, of course they would. And again, it makes you think, as soon as the topic comes, again, all this stuff's happening, and then a movie's conveniently coming out about it next month. which gives them more of a cover and more of the ability to just say it's all conspiracy theory and made up BS. Last week, I believe it was the 13th, which would be, for those of you who are keeping score numerologically here, and do gematria and all that shit, 10 days, from the 13th to the 23rd would be 10 days. So 10 days prior to, just last week, the 13th, we had simultaneous chemtrail X's appear all over the globe. They were here in Dallas. A friend of mine posted a picture of it. I saw it outside. They're all over the globe. And I've talked about those X's in the past before. They do those because those are, I mean, that's like X marks the spot. And it's also a big joke. But that's what they do. They use those with X-band radar. Because when they spray the barium and all that, barium being a radioactive isotope, the X's give them the ability to be able to zero in and target in on places using the barium. That's what they do. It's the same thing with HAARP. They hit the barium, these radioactive isotopes, with electromagnetic pulse energy from ionospheric heaters. And then, you've got yourself a weather weapon. You've got yourself a directed energy weapon. You've got yourself application for mind control. You've got all kinds of things here. Well, simultaneously using all these. So what have they been doing? They've been associating this Nibiru with what? Planet X. What appeared 10 days before the 23rd all over the world? X's. See, that's their little sick little code. And the way they like to try and mess with the minds of people like you and I who are awake and hip and aware of this stuff. Try to get that chill factor going. That's what it is. Those X's are because they've been engineering this, and they were marking their targets. They've been marking targets all over the world. And they're going to probably try to sell this on, being the Rapture or being Nibiru Planet X. And again, they've been giving all this stuff so much press, so many stories. I mean, nobody wanted to talk about Nibiru and giving news stories to it 2-3 years ago. Not even, there's more stories about it now than there was during the whole 2012 into the world horse shit going on. Which again was falsely related to Nibiru and the rest of that stuff. People always talk about now, I guess because he's dead and everybody's into all the, the hippie drugs, and which I've done my share of, all the hallucinogens and stuff, but everybody always puts Terrence McKenna up on a fucking pedestal like he's some god and flaws wrong. And people just forget because people they either just don't want to remember stuff or it's that, convenient memory thing. I don't know. But I just don't have that, and I refuse to have that. I mean, don't get me wrong, Terrence McKenna said some cool shit, but he has zero credibility. Anything that he said has absolutely zero credibility because he is fucking ground zero, man. He's the outbreak monkey for the 2012 Into the World hysteria. People forget that. It's a fact. Look it up. He was the first guy to push the idea, not just of, 2012, but specifically the end of the world happening. He was the whole source, single-handed source for that. But everybody still posts his videos and posts stuff, and they just never bring that up and act like that never happened. The guy intentionally pushed disinfo. So therefore, anything else that he said, no matter how valid it may seem, just has no validity because he knowingly pushed this BS. So again, if there was really, an end of the world scenario happening on the 23rd, if there was really a Nibiru thing happening in the world, ladies and gentlemen, you would not see this much. You would not see Washington Post full-page spreads about it, okay? I've talked about this many times. That movie Knowing with Nicolas Cage got it right. I also discussed a little bit of that and the connections to that with the Flat Earth stuff in Spellcasters Volume 1 and the first Crow movie. There's one guy connected to all those movies. Knowing, The Crow, and Flat Earth stuff in that Egypt movie. Anyway, same guy connected to all that. But it's exactly how it happened. The movie Knowing. When did they found out about it, right? Doing the research where they found out about the sun thing and the end of the world coming. But you notice in the movie, they fucking, I mean, it's literally, there's like an hour or two left and the world's coming in. And that's when the government goes on TV and announces it. That's exactly how it would go down. Okay? Believe me, if there was any validity to this happening for real, there would have been massive cover-ups going on to keep anything leaking out about this. So the fact that there have been so many news stories, so much press given to this is the best indicator that we have that it's at least in the, I'm not making any 100% set in stone predictions here, but based on that stuff, it's pretty safe to say that there may be something happen this weekend in terms of, blaming stuff like Nibiru or the end of the world for these cataclysms when in fact they've been using these weather warfare weapons. Not just the United States either. Russia, China, other countries have been using these things. There's people speculating that weather warfare is going on right now and that other countries are using them against each other right now is the cause of all this stuff. But anything that they can do to further the narrative that, all these cataclysms are being caused by climate change, weather machinery in warfare isn't real. And by the way, just to show you that it's not real, here's a nice fucking Hollywood movie for you to fucking choke on coming out in October called Geostorm. It's all about weather weapons. And of course, blah, if it's in a Hollywood movie, then of course it's not going to be anything real. But keep on believing that, SUVs are causing all this stuff. I mean, it's such horseshit. They're aware of these cyclical events. They're also aware that if they told the general public, hey, these things happen every fucking so many 100 years, or every 1,000 years, and we're overdue, and such and such a date. I mean, again, their whole societal structure would crumble. Not me, Jack. If I was in charge, I'd fucking tell everybody. They'd Kennedy my ass in 2 seconds, but I'd be able to, you know what? I'd get on TV and be, my fellow Americans, you know what? Fuck it. Here you go. See this? This is black tar heroin. See what I'm doing? I'm putting this shit right there, main vein, baby, jugular, right here. See that? Yeah, it's time. Look, you got about 3 hours left. The shit's going down. We're all gonna die. Yeah. So bang a main line. Screw your neighbor without a rubber. Just get at it because we're fucked. It's going down. Yeah. But of course, again, that's the thing. So any of the realize that if you're being propagandized by, some sort of end of the world scenario, again, if there was real data supporting this, they would already shut this shit down. Will they piggyback something like this? Of course. I mean, look at you all know, you've heard it a million times. You all know about the fucking drills they do whenever they're doing real events. They piggyback those so that emergency services and everything else gets confused. So it gives them time to pull off their operation. I mean, 9/11, massive, these massive drills going down of hijacked airliners being flown into the World Trade Center, and it just happens to happen. I mean, can you not wrap your mind around the level of just sheer odds it would take for that to happen simultaneously, not to mention happen once, but happen over and over and over again with other different events? It's just astronomical. And then what did we see with the Mexico thing? With the Mexico City earthquake? They're doing drills of the exact scenario happening, a massive earthquake hitting in emergency response to that, and what happens while they're doing it? It happens. So that to me, of all these things that have been going on with the hurricanes and all this, it's been clear even since the very first, with all the Houston stuff. Now, it's been clear even before Florida or Mexico or the Dominican Republic and all that Caribbean, all this stuff's going on now. that these were weather weapons being used. But the timing of this all happening now, and there being a mass of these this week, and earthquakes all across the globe, volcanoes erupting, the stuff we've already seen happening with Yellowstone that I've covered here on the show. There's a very great opportunity for them to be able to, and look, let's just bottom line this: these people know that after Vietnam and after, how many wars now in Iraq and all. I mean, people just won't. It took 9/11 for them to even have any sort of inkling of credibility to get people to buy into more warfare. I mean, if it hadn't been for 9/11, they would not have been able to sell people on that. And they've needed something else. And that's the thing. What does war achieve? Depopulation. That's a big one. That's a real big one. But not just that. The ability, all these trillions and trillions of dollars in these contracts, rebuilding contracts, and I mean, the weather weapons and the ability to. I've talked about it so many times for the past 10 years, the disaster economy. I've done whole shows on that. There's stuff on YouTube. You can hear me talking about that. But again, that's the advantage that these scalar weather weapons give you. The ability to be able to have the same effects you would desire from a war or massive warfare, but to be able to just get the general public and get people to believe in it under, the guise of acts of God. And that blew my mind the first time when I was probably in my early 20s, late teens. I can't remember. But the first time I ever saw that on an insurance thing, it just blew me away. Like, your policy covers, this acts of God. Like, wait a minute, what? I always thought that was fucking crazy. Like, what does an atheist have on their insurance policy? What's an atheist insurance policy? What's a agnostic insurance policy look like? Your policy does not cover acts of, well, maybe this or maybe it's that. Is that what it covers? I mean, I just always thought that was strange. This whole that seems very presumptuous to me. You know what I mean? If your car gets fucking waylaid by hail or gets fucking swept away by a tornado or something, that's an act that's considered called the official terminology for that is called an act of God. And just the fact that that's an established industry term leaves a lot of room for manipulation by the people that like to manipulate everything from the laws to the weather to the every kind of loophole you can imagine for their own benefit. But then, if you and I find a loophole and exploit it, then we're criminals, right? But their whole basis of everything they do is based on these loopholes and getting out of anything. So, yeah. Make no doubt about it. All this stuff happening simultaneously right now, on top of them pushing these stories about, the coming into the world and all the rest of this stuff. This is, again, none of this is coincidence. Not one bit. But I absolutely think that, all those simultaneous X's appearing last week. I mean, but again, there's a lot to be said about that, about the whole chemtrail thing. I mean, we don't even know everything that we even think we know about all that stuff. I'm telling you, just from my own experience from years and years of filming, taking video and pictures and stuff. I mean, stuff like where, you see these planes with the naked eye, and then you zoom in on them with a camera, and then they just disappear. Like with your naked eye, you see a plane, then you zoom in with the camera, and there's nothing but a trail there. Stuff being cloaked. I mean, I've heard all sorts of explanations for that. I've heard the theory that um, you know, they're holographic planes, and that, that sounds believable to me just based on what I've seen from them, what other people seen in pictures and stuff, video. But why would they want to use holographic planes? Well, some people have speculated that actually these are time travelers who came back in time from a time in Earth's future where time travel is possible and the rest of this, and where, essentially the whole environment's fucked up, and that they've come back in time to spray chemtrails and whatnot to try and alter the environment to keep from getting where it's going to go in the future. And that's one theory. But I'll tell you what, even before I knew about chemtrails, this is back in the early days of the internet. We're talking late 90s. I can't, it's, there's so many sites that aren't no longer around, and were just around for, certain small periods of time. But I remember reading in probably 97 or 98. I remember reading on the internet, one of the first things I read when I first started investigating this kind of stuff on the internet, because prior to that, all my research had been limited to, libraries and books and everything else. Going fucking pulling old microfilms and reading stuff. And this is fascinating stuff, but I remember reading this thing on it was like a UFO or alien website or something one time. And it said specifically that in at the turn of the century, right around 99 to 2000, right at the same time when people were predicting stuff like Planet X was going to come and the end of the world, all that stuff was going to happen. It said that these, where they were referring, I think they were referring to the Greys. They were referring to some sort of these extraterrestrials. I think it might have been Greys. I can't really remember. But basically they were saying that aliens were going to start in the late 90s to the early part of the 21st century. They were going to start. This is very interesting. I never was able to ever find this ever again. I found it once. I was never able to find it ever again. Never find anything else about it. But that aliens were going to start altering the ionosphere of Earth and spraying chemicals and whatnot in the ionosphere to create, and I remember the exact words were etherical energy barrier, an etherical energy barrier around the Earth, which will then make, will render spiritual communication, such as praying and communication with higher beings, impossible. And I could never find anything else about that again. And what's interesting about that is what I didn't know at the time is I didn't know that the ionosphere is actually, what's interesting about that is that the ionosphere is the level of the atmosphere that we bounce radio and TV signals off of, right? And just the fact that they were so specific in this thing about these aliens spraying and creating this barrier around the Earth in the ionosphere that would basically block out connection to a higher power, block out spiritual connections, to whatever you want to call it, to God or to whatever else. But that specifically these evil aliens had this agenda to alter the planet and the atmosphere, something about us being connected to, it always stuck with me, and I've never forgot that. And I look back on that now, and I just think, God damn, man, that could very well be the truth. Look at how we've, during that time period, how we've declined, morally, and just the things that weren't acceptable years ago that are now acceptable. And look at, it seems that, look at creativity. There was a good run there going through the 90s where, there's a lot of creative music coming out, a lot of creative movies and stuff coming out. I mean, think about how many movies. Go back and look at like 1995 and look at how many insane legendary records came out in just in the year 1995. Look at 1999 for movies. Look at how many fucking incredible movies just came out in the year 1999. And then all of a sudden it just seems like we went from all of that, all of a sudden to, 100%, boy bands and pop acts and fucking remake movies and crap. You really can't help but notice that there has been a sharp decline, I believe, throughout the world in spirituality and creativeness during that time period when that relates to this idea that, the ionosphere has been altered to basically keep humans in a state of keep humans completely spiritually unconnected and to keep us from ever being connected ever again. Now, the ionosphere thing, what's interesting about that, again, that's the level of the atmosphere where we bounce radio and TV signals off of, right? Well, it's also Buddhist monks. I believe it's the guy that wrote the DMT, the Spirit Molecule book, Dr. Rick Strassman. He talks about in that book that Buddhist monks hooked to electroencephalographic machines, EEGs, and that were in the full throes of meditation. They found that their brainwave frequencies resonate and oscillate. This is unbelievable. At the exact same frequency, ladies and gentlemen, as the ionosphere. And I remember that blew my fucking balls off when I first fucking tried to wrap my mind around that. Because it just made me think about, well, wait a minute. If their brains are in the same frequency as the ionosphere, and that's what we bounce radio and TV signals off of, is that why when you're in the full throes of meditation, you see images and you can hear sounds and stuff? I mean, is that some gateway or portal to some other dimension? And then you think about this idea that aliens, and the whole chemtrail thing, where are they spraying the chemtrails at? The ionosphere. What is HAARP? What is HAARP classified as? An ionospheric heater. That's when I started going, oh shit. I honestly, I have to say, of all the theories I've ever heard, ladies and gentlemen, my personal opinion, just for me, I'm not saying you have to believe this 100%. I'm not trying to convince you of any way of thinking. I'm just saying for me, I believe that's probably, if not 100% the truth, closer to the truth than anything else and all the other theories out there. Just based, again, the whole thing with the Buddhist monks, think about it. The full throes of meditation, that full spiritual connection, and your brain wave frequencies happen to be at the same level, just at the same frequency as the ionosphere. And this is where supposedly these aliens were going to be spraying to block off our connection with a higher power. And that's the same level we broadcast TV and radio signals with. And then HAARP is an ionospheric heater, and there's been talk about HAARP and mind control. There's just something. Again, the chemtrail thing. Nobody denies that definitely is part of weather warfare weapons. But I don't think it's the one and only explanation. And I think a lot of people have tried to push that as just the easy explanation because there are so many other unexplained things about it people are not comfortable talking about. And again, these topics and all this stuff, folks, and just the whole breadth of my research is absolutely why you have to. If you don't support. Listen, I got to tell you, that's why you got to support my work. You got to support what we do here and the other people. I'm telling you, it's more important than ever. There is stuff coming, and I believe, and I don't consider myself to be, some great prophet or, some bullshit like that, but I do believe, and there are many other people believe it too. Whatever's coming in the future, I am playing a major role in it somehow, some way, shape, or form. What that is and what it's going to be, I don't know yet. Even if it's just warning people that, what they're seeing is not the truth. I feel like that's my job, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. And you really believe me, folks. I'm somebody who's listened to and followed this stuff for many years. It's not bragging to say you really do get what you get here. You're just not going to get anywhere else. And that's, again, the result of my hard work and dedication, and also to all the people who contributed and have got us this far. So I'm asking all of you now to go and hit up our 10-year anniversary fundraiser and help us out. All right. That's all I got. We'll see you next time, folks. Take care.